Good morning and welcome to the fall conference of the Wharton School's Jacobs Levy Equity Management Center for Quantitative Financial Research. My name is Chris Geczy, Academic Director of the Center, and it's my pleasure to host today's event. Today's program highlights factor models and will feature 3 paper presentations and a panel discussion around the topic. Importantly, we will also be awarding the Wharton Jacobs Levy Prize for Quantitative Financial Innovation to honor Stephen Ross for financial innovation, recognizing Steve posthumously for his work in the area of multi-factor asset pricing, introduced in his 1976 Journal of Economic Theory paper, the arbitrage theory of capital asset pricing, and followed by important empirical work and applications. Steve published this paper, as many of you know, while he was a faculty member at Penn, with appointments in the economics department as primary and in the finance department at Wharton. We are gratified that Carol Ross, Steve's wife, joins us here to accept the award. Steve was one of the giants on whose shoulders so many of us stand in academic and practice alike. We are grateful for his contributions and for your presence here today, Carol. Our conference presenters today bring diverse perspectives from academia and the financial industry and reflect the Jacobs Levy Center mission to advance research in quantitative finance at the intersection of theory and practice. We are looking forward to hearing from them and learning from them, and I encourage all of you to offer your questions and comments during the audience Q&A portions. Please note that all of today's slide presentations can be accessed online. The web page is provided on the back of your agenda, along with information on how to connect to Wi-Fi. I would like to extend our profound thanks to Wharton alumni Bruce Jacobs and Ken Levy, whom you'll be hearing from today. In 1986, when Bruce and Ken founded Jacobs Levy Equity Management, quant investing was in its infancy and not well understood by and large. Bruce and Ken helped to change all of that. In a series of innovative and influential articles in the leading professional journals, in books they co-authored, in media appearances, and not least with their generous support of finance scholarship, they promoted the discipline of quantitative equity management. The investment approaches of numerous managers overseeing likely trillions of dollars today is directly or indirectly, in part, based on the work they've done themselves and the work of others whom they've supported. As well as being thought leaders and philanthropists, Bruce and Ken are, of course, vigorously competing in the industry they've godfathered, successfully managing billions of dollars utilizing their firm's proprietary research. Also, they continue to break new ground in aspects of modern portfolio theory that are central to its practical application. As just a single example, in 2013, they published an article in the Journal of Portfolio Management proposing a unique risk factor representing portfolio leverage and introduced the concept of leverage-efficient mean variance portfolios. Bruce and Ken have a philosophic devotion to expanding the frontiers of professional expertise in our industry, both through their own work and through supporting academic research in general. To that end, Bruce and Ken made a generous gift to Wharton in 2011 to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Jacobs Levy Equity Management, which established the Jacobs Levy Center and the Wharton Jacobs Levy Prize. With this gift, Bruce and Ken have helped ensure Wharton will remain at the forefront of research and scholarship in the field of quant finance. The Jacobs Levy Center supports innovative research that will help investors meet their goals and seeks to prepare the next generation of asset managers and academic scholars. The Wharton Jacobs Levy Prize, which is awarded every 2 years, recognizes outstanding quantitative research and that has contributed to a particular innovation in the practice of finance. We were pleased to award the first prize to Harry Markowitz for his work on individual retirement planning, and the second prize to Bill Sharp for his work on style analysis. And this year, as I mentioned, we are honored to recognize Steve Ross with the 2017 prize for his work in the area of multi-factor asset pricing. I think we can all agree that the prevalence of factors in the world of investing today is a testament to the lasting impact of Steve's work. I know many in this room were friends and colleagues of Steve's. We are so glad to have you with us today to celebrate his work and his life in this afternoon's prize. I would also like to recognize those sponsors who helped make today's event possible. Many thanks to this year's conference sponsors, Institutional Investor Journals, Jacobs Levy Equity Management, State Street Global Exchange, and Wharton Research and Data Services, also SiriusXM. I would like to thank the Jacobs Levy Center's corporate members who help make every day possible and research support at the center along with the conference possible. AQR Capital Management, Kepos Capital, and McKinley Capital Management. Our corporate membership program directly aids the research of Wharton and Penn faculty and students in quantitative finance, and we're grateful for the ongoing involvement and support of our members. In addition, these members enjoy certain benefits, including early access to research, involvement in center activities, and other advantages. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Dean of the Wharton School, Jeff Garrett, as Welcomer-in-Chief in today's program. Dean Garrett's association with Wharton stretches back more than 20 years to when he joined the faculty in the management department in 1995. He subsequently held professorships and leadership posts at Oxford, Stanford, Yale, UCLA, before returning to his native Australia and serving as Dean of the Business Schools at the University of Sydney and the University of New South Wales. He became Wharton's Dean in 2014. At that time, he gave an interview to Wharton magazine in which he highlighted the key role of quantitative analysis in making Wharton one of the top business schools in the world and keeping that reputation. He said, "What makes Wharton great in finance and what makes the school great in the rest of business education? I think the key is quantitative analytics. In the area of big data, in the era of analytics, it's not only for geeks. Better analytics leads to better decisions, and better decisions are the foundation of leadership. Wharton is the best positioned business school in the world to integrate sophisticated data-based analysis into leadership." End quote. Under Dean Garrett's leadership, I think Wharton has amply fulfilled this mission, and I hope the Jacobs Levy Center is a key part of what Dean Garrett had in mind to compete for world leadership in the field of quantitative research and analytics, and not only for geeks. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Garrett. Jeff.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks very much. That was a very formal and nice introduction of me, but let me tell you that I'm actually about the most unusual business school dean going, in the sense that I spent 25 years of my life, in essence, as a political scientist. And if I look back and think about what it was that drew me to business schools over time, it was really two things. The first one is, I guess, trite, but can never be stated too often, which is the extraordinarily important role that the private sector plays in public life, in fact, in all of our lives. And I like, actually, to use an example that I hope will resonate with lots of you in the room. You know, after the financial crisis, obviously, there were a lot of people who wanted to point the finger at finance professionals for being part of the problem, not part of the solution. And if I think about, you know, the big challenges in the world today, I actually think that desperately seeking rate of return is about the biggest challenge going. And that's because I know my retirement, the Penn endowment, every public pension system in the world relies on finance professionals to do their jobs incredibly well. So something like the public or the social role of the private sector and the finance sector strikes me as just being such an important theme in the world that we can never talk about it too much. So that was the first reason that drew me to business schools. I just think that over time, the relative importance of the private sector to the public sector has just increased, and that will continue. But the second thing was that in universities, which can be a bit ivory tower-ish, business schools are clearly the leading edge of engagement externally. And that is certainly true of all business schools. It's absolutely true of the Wharton School. So let me give you two versions of external engagement and impact. The first one is really a distinctive feature of business schools relative to other parts of the university, which is we tend to get measured a lot by what our graduates do. And so I like to say to our graduating students that go out there in the world and kill it, because we're going to claim credit for what you do, even if we don't deserve all the credit. And if you think about the finance industry, That's absolutely the case. But the second thing I think to say about finance that is often not appreciated is innovation in finance, and in fact entrepreneurship in finance as well. A lot of people, when they think about the world of business, view finance and entrepreneurship as things that have no intersection in them at all. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to go to South Mountain View, and if you're going to be in finance, you have to be in a crusty old Wall Street firm. But clearly what has happened in the past several decades, and I think will continue to happen in the next few decades, is that innovation and entrepreneurship are just critical parts of finance and must be so. And of course, the other thing that's true about that is that an enormous amount of the innovation in finance is academically and research-based and driven. So if I think about those two observations for me, very personal ones, about what drew me to wanting to be involved in business schools, the first one, just the role of the private sector, the public role of the private sector, and the public role of finance. And second, the fact that business schools are all about an external orientation, or certainly arguably more about an external orientation than most of the rest of universities. It makes it an incredible honor and pleasure and privilege for me to be Dean of the Wharton School, if for no more important reason than I get to come to events like this to celebrate what you've all done and what Bruce and Ken have done, because this conference, this center, and the prize actually embodies everything that business schools and the Wharton School is all about. So I got up early this morning in Philadelphia to get on a train. It's a bit slower getting into Manhattan these days because that tunnel under the Hudson is slow. I got some anxious texts this morning. Was I going to make it on time? I made it on time, just in time. Maybe that's a decent metaphor. And I really wanted, I wanted to be here. And I'm so glad to be here because everything that will happen today embodies the essence of what the Wharton School is all about. So that's why I'm glad to be here. But my formal role this morning, in addition to welcoming you all on behalf of the school, is to introduce Bruce Jacobs, somebody I've gotten to know very well in my 3 years as dean. I won't recapitulate Bruce's extraordinary biography because I think Chris Geczy did a wonderful job of doing that. But obviously the highlights for us need to be accentuated. So the founding in 1986 of the Jacobs Levy Equity Management Company with Ken Levy, who's also with us today. Then celebrating that, the Ken and Bruce 25 years later with their incredibly generous gift to Wharton to create this center and the prize. Those are extraordinary things. But there's more to Bruce's biography. So before founding Jacobs Levy Equity Management, Bruce was first vice president of the Prudential Insurance Company of America, and before that, and something we certainly all cherish, he was a member of the finance department at the Wharton School, as well as consulting with the Rand Corporation. And his articles have appeared in pretty important and prominent journals, including Financial Analyst Journal, the Journal of Portfolio Management, the Journal of Investing. And he is the author of several books, some co-authored with Ken, including Equity Management, The Art and Science of Modern Quantitative Investing, which I have proudly on my bookshelf in my office. Bruce and Ken asked me to write a supportive blurb for the book, which I was really honored to do, which has recently been published in its second edition. Bruce also serves on the Journal of Portfolio Management, its advisory board, and has served on the Financial Analyst Journal Advisory Council. And of course, he is the chair of the Jacobs Levy Center Advisory Board. Could you please join me in welcoming Bruce Jacobs to the stage?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Dean Garrett, for those very kind comments. Good morning, and welcome to the 2017 Fall Conference of the Jacobs Levy Equity Management Center for Quantitative Financial Research. Ken and I, as has been mentioned, established the center in 2011 to honor our 25th anniversary. The goal was to spur idea creation and innovation that makes a real impact on the practice of finance. When Ken and I first started our firm, now more than 30 years ago, our aim was to gain a greater understanding of what we used to call anomalies, return effects that could not be explained by the prevailing paradigm of efficient markets. I think we were onto something. Today, exchange-traded funds based on anomalies, or factors, as they are now called, have attracted more than $550 billion in assets worldwide. And that figure does not account for the additional hundreds of billions of dollars in factor-based strategies used by our firm and many other investment managers. There can be no clearer evidence that quantitative finance has entered the mainstream of modern investing. Yet there is still so much that we don't know about factors. Today's outstanding lineup of speakers will determine how far we have progressed in the art and science of factor investing and how far we still have to go. Andrea Matrace will start off by describing a global macroeconomic factor model that can explain the positive return premia of the value and momentum factors across asset classes and countries. It can also explain their negative correlation. The model builds upon the arbitrage pricing theory of Steve Ross, about whom I'll have more to say momentarily, and on macroeconomic risk factors identified by Chen Roll-Ross. Afterwards, discussant Nick Rusinoff will offer comments on the paper. Next, we'll explain the real-world challenge of factor investing with a state-of-the-art in factor models panel discussion featuring John Amorex of Vanguard, Giorgio DeSantis of Kepos Capital, Y. Lee of Neuberger Berman. After the lunch break, Jen Bender will weigh in on a question that has been hotly debated recently: is factor timing possible? I won't give away her conclusion, but I will mention 3 challenges she says must be overcome: the dynamic nature of factors and their time-varying relationships, the cherry-picking of indicators based on perfect hindsight, and ongoing revisions to macroeconomic data series that implies backtests may not accurately reflect information that would have been available at the time of the forecast. The discussant for this paper is Josie Smith. Then we'll hear from Michael Roberts about his efforts to assemble a database of accounting data extending back to 1926. This extended database provides a clearer vantage point from which to observe how accounting-based factors performed before, during, and after the periods typically examined in the literature. Michael explores 3 possible explanations for differences between in-sample and out-of-sample performances: unmodeled risk, mispricing, and data snooping. Phil Davis will offer his comments on this paper. As the day culminates, Ken and I will honor the work of Steve Ross by presenting the biennial Wharton Jacobs Levy Prize for Quantitative Financial Innovation, along with Chris Geczy and Wharton Deputy Dean Mike Gibbons. Steve is being recognized for his work in developing the arbitrage pricing theory, which continues to be a major influence on financial theory some 40 years after its publication. We will present the prize, the medal, to Steve's wife, Carol, and afterward we will benefit from the reflections of Steve's colleagues, Dick Roll and David Musto. Ken and I look forward to meeting as many of you as we can. Thank you.